What's up, y'all? Okay, here we go. Ketogenic diets. I've been putting out there that I was going to do a video for some time now on this subject, and it's time to do it. I've been really busy with a lot of things, and I've been really dragging my feet a little bit on my YouTube channel, and that's not okay. But I juggle a lot on a daily basis. So ketogenic diets. Wow, uh, that's a subject that I could probably talk for hours about, and I'm not going to do that. So there's no way you're going to listen to me that long. But um, ketogenic diets are a fad. Yes, I do know that since the whole Atkins revolution, if you want to call it, as the book was called, where most of this began, I guess the keto people are going to say that it's not a fad because it's been around for so long, but um, it goes in waves, I guess would be the best way to put it. It was a fad, then it fell out of favor, and then it became a fad again, and I think it's going to probably continue to be that way. But all that aside, ketogenic diets do work. Um, at it probably the quickest way for a person to lose weight. I won't deny that at all. Does that make it optimal? Absolutely not. Um, Fat loss in general, and I'm going to, when I discuss ketogenic diets and I go into this video, so as a personal trainer, as a bodybuilder, as somebody who is in the fitness industry, obviously, I relate everything to fat loss, not weight loss. So keep in mind through this video when I say these things, I'm talking about fat loss in general because I feel that is what most people are interested in, and we'll touch on that in the difference between the two. There's weight loss and there's fat loss, two totally different subjects. And that being said, weight loss or fat loss, regardless of how you want to state it, it still comes down to the basic premise that will never ever change in the human body, and that is you have got to create a caloric deficit to lose weight. Period. There is absolutely no other way to lose weight. You have got to create a caloric deficit to lose fat or to lose weight in general. That is the basic premise of weight loss. It's not quite that simple when we get into retaining muscle and optimal performance and that sort of thing. Diet plays an integral role in that because then we get into metabolic issues, which I'm going to attempt not to deviate too far from the subject on this, because when we start talking about weight loss and fat loss, it can easily get derailed because I can go a million different directions with this. And the reason I say that is because there's so many different avenues when talking about this subject. So we can talk about the metabolic side and all that stuff. So because when I say that you have to create a caloric deficit in order to lose weight, then theoretically, if we starve ourselves or we only eat 500 calories a day, we're going to lose weight, and that's an absolute fact. You will, up to a point. So that's when we start deviating from the subject of ketogenic diets, and then we get into metabolic issues, which I would love to do another video on that sometime in the future, but not today. So the whole idea behind a ketogenic diet, for those that don't know, all the keto people out there are their claim to weight loss, and I have to say weight loss because that's really what it boils down to, is controlling insulin. Insulin is a hormone released in your body in response to carbohydrate intake. Insulin is what some would call a fat storage hormone, which it's really not that simple. But insulin is used to shuttle nutrients, control blood sugar, that sort of thing. So Theoretically, and it is true to a certain extent, is if we don't ingest carbs, only ingest certain types of carbs and keep our carb intake to a certain level, then insulin release is at a minimum, kept stable, and therefore the potential for fat storage and then the ability to lose fat is increased. Again, that is 100% true. I agree with that, no doubt about it. But that's only one side of the equation. So, in my world, as a bodybuilder, personal trainer, and a fitness person, fitness enthusiast, I think about the optimal way for the human body to function, the optimal way for the human body to continue to train, the optimal way for the human body to not only retain but to gain muscle. Again, not to deviate, but you're not going to, very unlikely to gain muscle while you're dieting. It is possible when we get into genetic issues and we get into time that the person's been training, or we get into more of the hormone chemical side of things, which we're not going to get into on this video. Still incredibly difficult regardless of any of those factors being present. So are ketogenic diets optimal? No, absolutely not. This this subject, and I know there's going to be some people out there that want to debate me on this, and I really don't want to get into a debate, but there's certain times that I will welcome it, and this is one of them. I'm not going to argue and fight. I have no problem standing my ground on this idea. A hard training athlete cannot train at an optimal level with zero carbs or little to no carbs in their diet. It's absolutely impossible, and this is where the keto people are going to say that you use fat for fuel, and once your body adjusts to it, that you can train just as optimally with fat intake and carbohydrate intake, and that is absolutely 100% false. So as far as ketogenic diets and weight loss, I think one of the biggest attractions to people doing a ketogenic diet and weight loss is the rapid results that they see. And when I say that, it's really going to be related to seeing numbers on the scale move. So what happens if we take a person, and it doesn't even have to be a person that is just, I mean, you can take a person that lives a fitness lifestyle and still has a decent amount of calories in their diet and consuming carbs, or a person that's just not dieting at all. It doesn't matter. The point is that when you take a person that is ingesting carbohydrates and they have stored glycogen in their muscle cells, glycogen also pulls water with it as well. So what happens when you stop or greatly reduce your carb intake to little to nothing, then glycogen stores are depleted. With that goes water and the glycogen itself, and you immediately see a large amount of weight loss in a very rapid time. I'm talking the first week, and that's incredibly exciting to people because they're so focused on the number on the scale that they are ecstatic when they see themselves lose 15, 20 pounds in 1 week. That's obviously not sustainable, because all it is it mostly, I'm not going to say all, because when we're talking about the human body, nothing, this is not a perfect world where you can state one thing or another, but a large percentage of it is water weight. I hate to bust anybody's bubble, but that's exactly what it is. It's not fat. So that really intrigues people and excites people, because that is a huge selling point to ketogenic people, because they can make themselves look like geniuses to somebody because they take client A and put them on a carbohydrate restricted diet, and they lose 10, 15, 20 pounds in the first week, and now they look like a miracle worker. They're not. That's a false number. Um, Me as a bodybuilder, personal trainer, I do not believe in scales. My clients will tell you that. I do not like using body weight. I do use body weight as a guide, but I do not use it. That is a very, very, very vague number to me that I really don't care about. It's just one of the factors that I would use with a client, but I don't put much into the number on the scale. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm a visual person. And the reason I say that is because you can have situations where, just like I stated with water loss, and then muscle loss as well. So, which is another problem with the ketogenic diet. Muscle is lost at a rapid rate too. And this is also where the ketogenic diet people are going to tell me that if protein intake is kept high enough that's not going to arise. And again, that's false. It's just false. You're you're not going to retain. You could consume 600 grams of protein a day and still lose muscle. So that's just not a true statement at all. There's more to retaining muscle, building muscle, and holding on to muscle than protein alone. So watching the number on the scale going up and down, it's an arbitrary number, and that is why. So if you're and this could even be just a low calorie diet with carbohydrate, with a balance of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. But if you restrict your calories too much, and you can still get in the same situation where the number is moving on the scale in the direction you want it to go, which in this case we're talking about weight loss, which is down. Um, that's an arbitrary number due to water weight fluctuations, which can vary hour to hour, honestly, depending on hormonal fluctuations and water intake and many other different things. But also muscle loss. Muscle loss is a huge factor on weight loss. And that is where people, that's why I don't like to use scales. That's where you want to look at the human body and see what's really going on. Is the person losing fat and retaining their muscle, or are they retaining fat and losing muscle? That's a scenario that's created a lot in the human body when people diet, and that's where diet gets really, really tricky. And I'm not going to get into that in this video because uh, that's where things started getting more complex, and that's a part of the bodybuilding world and the physique competitor world, not necessarily people, your average person. So I'm not going to get into that. Just know that just because the number on the scale is going down, that does not mean you're losing fat. You could be losing an appreciable amount of muscle mass, which, in fact, obviously is not only going to affect your quality of life, it's also going to affect the way you look. It's also going to affect your metabolism. It's going to affect the way you feel. It's going to affect your hormones. It's going to have a very, very, very detrimental effect if you get into a situation where you're losing muscle and holding on to fat. Anybody that's spent any time with the gym has seen people, what I call, and I don't use this term to shame anybody. This is not, I promise you, it's just, it's the only way that I know how to state it, and it's called what I would consider skinny fat. And the reason I say that is because there's people out there that lose a lot of weight, and they even get really skinny, but they're still holding an appreciable amount of body fat, and you can tell that they've lost a lot of muscle. And that all comes down to dietary factors. That is one of the things that is a big problem with the ketogenic diet, is the loss of muscle mass. Muscle is a metabolic tissue. And what I mean by that is muscle has to have energy in order to sustain itself. So fat does not. Fat is simply stored energy that does not require any energy to maintain it, but muscle does. That is why you do lose muscle when you're dieting, when you over diet or do too much cardio. There's lots of scenarios that cause that. But your body, preferentially from a survival standpoint, which we always have to remember when we're talking about the human body, it does not understand fat loss. It does not understand building muscle. It does not understand holding on to muscle. It does not understand trying to look a certain way aesthetically. It understands survival. And that is the only thing the human body is concerned about is surviving. So if your body is in a metabolic situation that it needs energy from somewhere because the calorie consumption is too low, then it will start to catabolize itself and preferentially muscle tissue. And the reason muscle tissue is because from a survival standpoint, your body needs to hold on to fat stores in case this famine, which is what your body considers it when we're at large caloric deficit, and that's where where things get tricky with diet. And it will preferentially use muscle because muscle is a metabolic tissue. Therefore, we need to try to reduce it and use that energy. That stored energy, because it takes energy to maintain that and keep our fat stores at a certain level, just in case we need that later on for continued survival. And so that's what happens. That's a big problem with the ketogenic diet, and that's where when people say, and I get it, insulin is a fat storage hormone. It's not just a fat storage hormone. Insulin shuttles nutrients, and that includes amino acids. It includes everything. It's not just a fat storage hormone. That is a completely false statement. And that doesn't even get into what I originally talked about, which is being able to train optimally. So I have to use people that work out, because I think that's most people that are going to be listening to me and following my channel, even if it's not for physique competition purposes, but just to look and feel better. So you cannot train optimally with zero carbs. Does your body adapt to using fat as energy? Absolutely it does. Is it optimal? No, because your body, it's hard. It's the conversion for your body to, and I'm trying to not get into using big terms, but converting fat to energy for training purposes is a much harder and longer process with fat than it is with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are immediately available for your body to use as energy. And that is going to be the catalyst to you being able to continue to train and work hard. Not only that, glycogen, which is what we discussed earlier in the video as well, glycogen and the water that it pulls with it into the muscle cell, which, it's for those that know what a muscle pump is, which is basically flooding the muscle cell with nutrients, blood, water, carbohydrates. You have to have carbohydrates present in order for that to happen. With that, it carries amino acids and other nutrients as well. So it's incredibly important. It's incredibly important for not only sustaining muscle tissue, but at some point building muscle tissue. So those are all factors as far as ketogenic versus non-ketogenic. So all that being said, you can lose just as much weight with lowered carbohydrates, and carbohydrates can be manipulated, of course. I just don't think that going into ketogenic state is a good way for anybody to lose weight. It's not sustainable, first of all. People will argue with me and say that it is sustainable, and it absolutely is not. I've seen it happen over and over and over again, and it works great for a while. It might even work for years, and but at some point, the human body, anybody that's ever done a ketogenic diet, and people will tell you, I really feel like my body truly craves carbohydrates. It does. It's a macronutrient. Does your body need it for survival? It does not, because your body can convert other, specifically fat into glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. But your body will crave carbohydrates because it is a macronutrient. And when I say we need it, we don't need it for survival, because we could technically live the rest of our lives without ingesting 1 gram of carbohydrate ever again. But our bodies know what we need, or knows what it wants, and that is carbohydrates. So at some point, that person's going to start to consume carbohydrates again. Um, the logical way would to be slowly increase carbs. Generally, not how it goes, because what happens is, just like any other restricted diet, and that goes for any caloric restricted diet. Unfortunately, we at some point as humans, we have a threshold and then we break. So when they break, when they cave, or sometimes it's not just a complete all out falling off the wagon, so to speak, but they get to the point that they want to start eating more normal again. And when they do, they find out that even consuming what by their standards before starting the ketogenic diet would be a small amount of carbohydrates, that their weight gain goes up quickly. Again, back to the scale issue, but this is what people relate it to. Scales can go up quickly. Is that going to be fat? No, not at first. It's going to be, again, now you're gaining water weight, and now the glycogen's being stored and flooded into the muscle cell, which is a good situation. But the problem is that your body is not used to it. So after that point, then your fat gain does happen at a fairly rapid rate. So all that fat that you lost is going to come back, and it's going to come back incredibly quickly. The only way to prevent that is to slowly introduce carbohydrates into the diet, and most people aren't disciplined enough to do that. I'm talking about people that aren't competitors at this point. Competitors, and even they cave, but I mean their goals are different. So we're talking about people that are just wanting to be fit and just be healthy and look better. So that's a big factor. That's a really big factor. So when you go back and you want to live more of a normal life, all your results are washed away, and that's sad to see. I don't like to see people go through that. Some call it yo-yo dieting. Sometimes it's not necessarily yo-yo dieting. Sometimes it's just that poor person just dieted wrong or incorrectly, or is given the wrong advice, such as these types of diets. And then when they try to do a more maintainable or sustainable regular diet, but yet on a still stay healthy, then they get frustrated because now they're gaining fat and they don't really know why. That's why. It's because you completely removed a macronutrient from your diet, and now you're trying to add it back in, and your body's not used to it. Now your body's used to burning fat for fuel, and now you're reintroducing carbs, and usually it's at a much higher rate than you're ready for, and the weight gain comes back incredibly quickly, and I just absolutely hate to see that, but that's exactly what happens. So I am not. I guess I am anti-keto. I think it does have its place in certain situations, mostly not. And if it is employed, it's for a short period of time, and that would be on a competitor that is struggling to get to contest condition, and we're at the last stages, and it's pretty much a last ditch effort to get that person in shape, but it's not for very long. Not long enough to have a huge long-term impact on that person. So for the average person, absolutely not. The average person needs to use caloric restriction with a balance of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and that's the optimal way to lose weight. And then when that person reaches their goal, whatever that may be, then they can slowly increase calories, but the detrimental impact, there really is none if they do it properly, because they're not in a state of carbohydrate cravings, and their body's already used to consuming at least some carbohydrates. Now the question will arise, how many carbohydrates should a person eat while they're trying to maintain their weight, diet, lose fat? I don't know the answer to that. We're all different. Um, that's where you start to get into very large genetic differences. There are people out there that are very carbohydrate sensitive. I do agree with that, and that is an absolute fact that some of us can tolerate a much higher carb intake than others. So carbs are utilized in adjusting carbohydrates are utilized for sure in fat loss. I'm just we're specifically talking about ketogenic diets, which is where your body is in a true state of ketosis and your carbohydrates are basically eliminated, at least as far as you possibly can. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of things I left out of this because I didn't want it to be overly complicated. I believe and know that the optimal way for anybody to not to look and feel their best, to train, to be able to not have incredible amount of metabolic damage and consequences when the diet is over, is to try to eat a more balanced approach of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Um, you still want to be able to function, first of all. Brain function requires glucose, and anybody that's told it's done a ketogenic diet will tell you that there's a brain cloud, and then they'll tell you that you adapt to it. And every argument for the ketogenic diet is your body adapts to it. And people, here's the deal: I've done it, and it's just simply not true. And the reason I can speak on the subject is because I actually have experience in this with myself because I do experiment on myself. Now, this experimentation was back in 2008 when I was competing at the 2008 Missouri State Bodybuilding Championships. Um, and I was shredded, but I lost a lot of muscle. And I couldn't function. I literally could not function. Your body does not get used to it. That's just what people tell themselves and convince themselves of, or try to convince other people of to justify doing a ketogenic diet. The best way to do it is to balance your macronutrients so you can still function, so you can still train hard, so you can still think, so you can still sleep, so you can hold on to muscle. Um, like I said, you're not going to, unless there's some really, really um, incredible factors at play, that you're not going to gain muscle while you're dieting, but we want to hold on to as much as possible, and to also not have a detrimental impact when we want to resume more of a what a normal lifestyle would be. We don't want to have a detrimental impact to all the hard work that we already did. So um, that is my recommendation. Carbs are not evil. Carbs do not make you fat. I absolutely hate that statement. That is one thing that makes me insane. Back to the genetic differences, and I do understand that. But if carbs make you fat, then I should be at least 300 or 400 pounds, and I'm not kidding. I um, now I do tolerate carbs well. I won't deny that, but my experience doesn't just come from my body; it comes from working with hundreds of people through the years. So that I've never met a person that genetically was not as tolerant to carbs still have to eliminate carbs from their diet. It's just true. I There's very rare cases that I think a ketogenic diet needs to be implemented. I just don't think it's the optimal way to be healthy, to lose weight, and to look and feel your best. So, um, ladies and gentlemen, the carbohydrates are not evil. Do not be scared to consume them. Just try to learn to adjust them accordingly and also adjust other macronutrients accordingly, and in training factors as well to achieve the results that you're trying to get. And if you need help with it, please contact me or contact somebody that is knowledgeable on this subject. Um, but I don't want I just want to emphasize that carbohydrates are not bad, they're not evil. And when I say we need them, I say that because I believe it's the optimal way to survive and the optimal way to feel good and look good. It is not because I, that we need them for survival, because we don't. But it they wouldn't be a macronutrient that humans consume if it wasn't something that at the end of the day that we really needed. So that is my take on ketogenic diets. I could go into far more detail and and I didn't want to do that with this video. I want to keep things as simple as possible. And when it comes to training and nutrition, that is one principle that I wish people would really employ, and they call it the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. And that's everything. We as humans tend to overthink and overcomplicate every single thing in life, and then overanalyze. And dieting and training, it is a science, but it's really not overly complicated. We tend to overcomplicate it ourselves because we want to manipulate all these factors, and we want to believe in our minds that that's going to make this gigantic difference, and it doesn't. Keep it simple, stupid. A balanced diet, hard training, cardio, rest, repeat, and you will be successful. Don't take your calories down too far, and definitely don't eliminate carbohydrates, ever. Thanks for listening to my rant. If you guys need to contact me, please do. I love comments. I love to communicate with my people, and that's why I'm here. I want to open up. I always want to open up discussions. So feel free to comment below, comment, or go to my Facebook page, or any social media avenue, and I'm open to discuss all these things. So thank you.